don't really have a quiet voice either, so we're all set? Good evening, everybody. My name's Alan Cloutier with Stantec. I know I'm talking to a small room with a microphone, but the microphone's more for anybody who's watching from home, which is important because people from home, I'll explain a little bit later, you're going to be able to give your input on the projects. So, once again, I'm with Stantec, and we've been working with the town of Groveland on completing the Complete Streets Prioritization Plan. I think we can just go to the next. So the agenda tonight, I was going to give a little introduction to Complete Streets. First, the process, because this is a MassDOT program. So there are certain requirements, but there's also certain deadlines, dates to go. Going to give a quick overview of the benefits of a Complete Streets. Talking about basically where we are on the progress. We're going to go through the evaluation, how we evaluated the roadways, the intersections. We've developed a list. Right now it's a draft list. So we're actually looking for input from you guys that are here in the crowd, you guys that are here watching TV. Anybody else who hasn't, they can actually go on to a website to give their input. And then we're going to talk about the next steps. So we can go to the next. First of all, so my company likes to do a safety moment for really any meetings. And we're kind of here about safety. That's one of the reasons why we're here. So just kind of a little shout out. Schools are getting out. There's going to be a lot of kids on the roads, especially at hours where maybe they haven't been in the last few hours. So just keep your eyes open as you're driving. Expect the unexpected. Kids might be crossing or riding their bikes. So progress, the town adopted and MassDOT approved the policy. They've received the funding for a consultant, that's Stantec, to help put together this plan. So the funding was from MassDOT. I've met with the town planner, the DPW, to start working on a list of options. We need to come up with a list of at least 15 projects, but we can come up with more. And we're currently assessing a draft priority chart. We are going to submit it to MassDOT by the end of July. So just a little explanation of where we are. So it's a 3-tier system. Tier 1 is basically the town had to go to training, but then there's also developing the policy and adopting it. We are currently in Tier 2, which is developing the prioritization plan. And then Tier 3 is going to be a construction application where we're actually asking for, or the town's asking for money for construction for some projects. This is just kind of a list of, these are all the different things that are available that you could actually use the money for. So there's quite a bit of flexibility. And I guess just kind of the deadlines. So this would be due by the beginning of September, but we're going to get it in July. The construction application is due October 1st. So obviously that can go in first as well, earlier than that as well. So, well, just kind of a run through of Tier 3. Groveland's going to identify a few projects to ask for funding. MassDOT's going to review it. Groveland enters the contract with MassDOT, and it goes as a reimbursement project. So, like I said, we have a long list that is more than just what's going to be asked for this year. We can go. Kind of quick little introduction. What's a complete street? Complete street is really trying to accommodate all users. Pedestrians, bikers, bus riders, people of all ages, all abilities. Sometimes like to add in basically to the best that you can. Not all roadways can you fit in bike lanes or separated bike lanes or what have you. Massachusetts, we're usually dealing with limited right-of-way. So it's how best can we try to accommodate everybody. Go. So all users is a quick side. A quick little rundown of the benefits of complete streets. There's a lot of safety benefits, a lot of equity benefits. Not everybody can necessarily afford to ride a car. Some people also have different reasons why they choose to or cannot drive. Fitness and health, especially with a expanding obesity epidemic. If you give people safe facilities, they can get on them. There is an increasing demand for environmentally friendly modes, and we're trying to improve mobility for children, the aging population, also people with disabilities. That's really important too. There's a lot of different eligible types that we can deal with. We could be looking at multimodal safety, bicycle enhancements, pedestrian enhancements. It's not everything is just about bicycles. Transit, which we don't really have too much of in this area. But sometimes we're actually accommodating multiple modes. You know, sometimes people take more than one. They might be riding a bike somewhere and then walking across the street. They might be driving somewhere in town center and then crossing the street. So sometimes people who are a driver are also a pedestrian. Okay. So this is what we've been doing as far as developing the plan, identifying the deficiencies. We've been driving around roadways, checking a lot, all the different roadways, what has sidewalks. We develop a list of recommended projects. We're working on a prioritized list, and we're discussing and reviewing it with the community. So just kind of a few little slides of, I guess, a little background of the town. As far as jurisdiction, we have basically one Main Street north of School Street is under Mass DOT jurisdiction, which is important for this project because most of these ideally should not be on Mass DOT roadways because Mass DOT, they have a whole process as far as doing their roadways, which can take a while. These are supposed to be quick hitters. You can go next. As far as what's on the national highway system, you get Salem and School is on the national highway system, which does factor in, especially when we're talking about how wide roadways need to be and what access. And then, of course, you have Main Street. You can go next. This is just the functional classification that we're looking at. So showing where we have collectors, arterials, and then there's also obviously a lot of local roads. So you can kind of see the same grid pattern. We have School Street, Center Street, King, Main Street. We're going to kind of see a lot of those same roads are going to kind of pop up in a number of these upcoming graphics. You can go next. And we did a field inventory. So we looked at all the different roadways, figured out which ones have sidewalks, where is there bicycle accommodations. We have that green line is really the future Groveland Trail, so it's going to have pedestrian and bicycle facilities. We have a lot of roadways that don't have any sidewalks in Groveland, and then a number of them have one on one side of the road. Very few have them on both sides of the road. We have a short little segment on Main Street, tiny little segment over actually on Main Street on the other side of town. So we definitely have lots of room for improvement. And mostly we're looking at this, a lot of it is going to be sidewalks. Where can we put in a sidewalk? Go next. We look at a few different tools to kind of also find out where do we want where do we want them? What's going to be the priority? And this is actually the MAPC came out with this tool. So it really looks at what the demand is on roads. So where is there a lot of high density residential or higher density residentials, shopping, different draws that might bring people. So not a surprise, we got School Street, Main Street, those are showing up in that darker red. And you also have a little bit on King Street and a little bit down on Washington Street. And then obviously a lot of local roads are very, very light. There are numbers associated with it too, but right now, basically the darker, the higher priority. We can go to the next. And then really bicycling demand is about the same. Well, actually, it's a little different. Especially we kind of noticed that JB Little had a high bike demand, even though you can't really get down there right now. So those two are really looking at what the demand is, not how good are the conditions. We can go next. This is kind of at least I think it looks kind of cool. This is a Strava heat map. So this is a little different. I mean, you notice we're looking at the same roadways pretty much that are showing up bright. That's where people are riding their bikes using Strava. So this is not capturing everybody. This is kind of more focused on the people that are bothering to log their workout. So it's kind of just an extra tool to look at because sometimes you'll see a few things popping up that you might not necessarily see in some of the other ones. But again, so sometimes it's people are on for that longer bike ride, but this is really where it helps show more where are people currently on some of the roads. And again, this is bicycling, not walking so much. And then we also look at the crash locations. Throughout town, this is really for the last 3 years. Definitely most of the crashes on School Street, Main Street, Salem Street. We also looked at where were pedestrians or bicyclists. So we had one on Salem Street, one on School Street, and then one on, I believe that's Garrison, by the time it turns up there. So, we want to create, look at, we want to say facility. So kind of looking at, where there are crashes, because maybe there's some improvements that can be done. You can go. And this is especially not just for you guys, but anybody at home. We're trying to gather information, and some people have already been putting information into our Wikimap. There's a highlight right on top. It's wikimapping.com/Groveland. This is a pretty short URL. You could also try Googling it, and you should come up with it. So it's a wiki map. It's very easy to use. You don't have to register or anything. You can basically go in there. You could either pick a route if you want to draw a line, or you could pick a point if you want to just drop a point. You put a point, you could write in your comment. So if you have a project that you would like, if you have a problem you'd like addressed, maybe not potholes so much. This is supposed to be complete streets, bicycling, pedestrians. Put it in there. We're going to be gathering more of this information as this goes on. I kind of thinking maybe over the next 2 weeks, if people could try to get all their comments onto here, if you have comments, because we're going to want to take the next step to really try to distill this down into a list. So once again, wikimapping.com/Groveland.html. So try to get in. So now we're going to go into our high priority projects. So I got quite a few here, so I'm going to kind of try to go pretty quick. And if you have questions at the end, we can address them. So, these, I guess I don't go right into the list. Yeah. So first, this is kind of the existing conditions. So where you see kind of where we have some sidewalks. If we go to the next page, I didn't want to wait till the end to kind of show. These are basically all the different projects that we identified. Felt like by the end, people might be a little too tired to show off my, nice map here. So we're going to kind of go into most of these. And as you'll see, it's a lot of School Street, King Street, Center Street type projects. So we can go. So the first one, this is actually a project that was identified a while ago. It was how do we connect people from the Groveland Rail Trail out to really Town Hall, to the Pines Recreational Area. So there were some concepts that were introduced a while ago to basically try to get bicyclists up, really using Main Street along the river. Now once you cross, it starts getting onto that state highway on the north side of Main Street, although mostly it was striping, so it's not exactly, not major construction project. So we'll go, and I guess we have these as numbers, 1 through 23, 24. Those numbers don't have to stay the numbers. I had to come up with something in the meantime. I could have done A, B, C. So don't focus too much on what order they're in. Project 2, we have a lot of crossings across Main Street that are not ADA compliant. They basically add in a vertical granite curb. So we identified 4 locations that aren't all listed here to really try to rebuild the wheelchair ramps, restrip the crosswalks. 2 of them at King Street and Broad Street are, I think, really good candidates for an RRFB, or a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which really helps pedestrians. You push a button and it flashes, warning the drivers. There's one on 133 in Georgetown. So I kind of drove through that earlier if anybody is wondering where they are. They're really effective in having motorists yield. So we'll pull that up in a little bit later. Project 3, so we're really trying to get a lot of these streets that aren't too far from downtown. We're trying to get some sidewalks on them. So we have King Street, basically building a sidewalk between Gardner and Center Street. Let me just keep going to the, oh, there's a picture of King Street. Project 4, 7 Star Road, trying to put in basically a sidewalk there too, one side of the road. There we go. We got Garrison Street, sidewalk. I mentioned there's going to be a lot of sidewalks. So we have, actually I left in King Street there, but basically Main Street from the trail down to Washington Street. There's some areas have sidewalks. It's more of reconstructing it. It's in poor shape. Some areas it's actually level with the road. So it'd be more kind of raising up where it should be. Go next. Project 7, we have the Main Street, Washington Street intersection that is really wide. There's also a store that's right on the corner. It's basically one big curb cut, which is pedestrian. Like there's a picture, trying to cross that street. So I put a little PowerPoint graphic. We can go to the next one. That kind of shows. I'm not a very good artist, by the way, and this is not my graphics group doing it. But basically, you can try to tee it up a little bit, try to make people go a little slower. You can give people a couple crosswalks to get across the street, but still provide a couple access points for the business. Obviously, he hasn't seen it, so we'd have to kind of coordinate with him too. But basically, you want to be able to get people across the street safely. Shorten up the crosswalks is a good way to do it. King Street, this is an idea, and by the way, some of the stuff hasn't been seen by the town yet, so it might be a surprise. We can go to the next slide. So King Street, basically, there's one curve that's just a really wide curve. We have a wide curve like that. It allows people to take a right turn at 35 miles an hour, and really isn't safe for people that might be along the edge of the road. We could put in a couple, shoulder lines to try to delineate the travel way a little bit. Main Street, Broad Street, you kind of have that really wide opening. So there's a driveway right there, but we could do a little bit of a bump out. Not really to narrow the road, but to really make that a slightly sharper turn. We can put in the crosswalk that's already there. They don't have to go quite so far if they're in the crosswalk. We can go to the next. Okay, now back to sidewalks. Actually, School Street's more than sidewalks. So phase 1's already been done. The MassDOT project that has gone from the town line to Parker Street. So MassDOT did that project, but it is on a local road. It's on a town of Groveland-owned road. So really it would be the next stage of taking it up to Gardner Street or Elm Park. So that last one would be roadway reconstruction too. So Center Street, we have basically, again, another sidewalk from Rollins School. And then, there's another segment of it on the other side that could be done. On School Street, Route 97, there it goes. It's a pretty fast roadway. There are a few similar type signs around like this. There's also some in Georgetown as well. So it's really put in this would be a project on its own, to install a couple of these signs really in the vicinity of the Bagnell School, so ahead of it if you're coming northbound and, well, I guess it's ahead of it if you're coming southbound as well. Kind of like to not only put the feedback sign, but also to have the speed limit sign. Can sometimes be effective, because sometimes I've seen a few around that I just see how fast I'm going. I'm like, great. How fast should I be going? I don't know. Sometimes it can be a little tricky when you're by a school zone, because that one changes throughout the day. But I think we've put it in advance. Bike racks, there's something that could be paid for under this project. I know Elm Park and Pines Recreational Area is something that town's considering. There's obviously many different styles, and there could be other locations if they're requested of where you could put bike racks. They just help encourage bicycling. Okay. So the Elm Park Bike Pass, well, my lines moved a little bit on this. So it's a roadway. If you want, you could put in a shoulder or a bike lane just to, if bicyclists want to get off of 97 and kind of take along that parallel route. I know if I'm bicycling, especially as you start coming closer to that So that signal, if you're not going across the bridge, if you're going to Main Street, there's not a whole lot of room once you start getting a bit closer. So, with some striping, you can put in, either shoulder or bike lane pretty easily. There's a couple crossings I kind of listed under this project just because of the proximity, where I don't have a pointer, but, you get a crossing right across from a hair salon. Good locations where you can put in RFBs. Because you do have people crossing. The RFBs are not ridiculously expensive, and they don't really hold up traffic. They really, the extra warning. And you maybe even do one at Gardner Street as well. So Project 15, more sidewalks. King Street, we're really trying to create a big network. Project 16, Salem Street culvert needs to be replaced. I don't really have any good graphics for that, but the DPW, they know what's going on there. Some of these also are getting into the projects that were pretty recently asked for. So I haven't sketched up anything over here yet. But 7 Star Road at J.B. Little, we kind of got a lot of roads coming in here. I almost feel like we need to get a little more data before we start sketching anything up here, or maybe even some survey. But we got a lot of roads, a lot of confusion at that location. So there's a reason why it's down in Project 17 was lack of information. 7 Star Road and Center Street, it's kind of a similar, well, not similar to the last one, but it doesn't line up very well. So I think the town expressed, desire to get something going on this project as well. Wayfinding signage. This is actually a photo that I took down by Yale. Really downtown location, this is really geared for pedestrians, so they could actually see where they want to go, any things that they want to highlight about what to get to or what they might be interested in. And you'll notice it tells them not necessarily in miles, but how many minutes of a walk is it. Rollins Street, more sidewalks. And Washington Street, actually there's VC Park is off of Washington Street, so that's another segment. It's a fairly busy roadway with no sidewalks, so we're really trying to bring people in, get people access to recreational facilities. Go ahead, we can go. I started having a thought of when we're actually compiling it and really ranking, the busier roads are the ones that you want a sidewalk on even more. So when we're kind of trying to rank them, sometimes the busier streets will get more, points associated, or if you're near a school or what have you. So yeah, there's a couple of locations off Center Street that the ADA ramps are not compliant, so they were kind of a small project themselves. Wood Street, we're kind of close to the end, so it's really a sidewalk, really could help people get to the town forest. And that was actually a request that came in earlier today. So if you get your requests in, they can get on the list. So, and then Uptack Sidewalk, it's another roadway without a sidewalk. So we're trying to get it on the list. We can go to the next page. So I'm going to get into the next steps, but I talked about the list. So it has to be, we're supposed to be at least 15 projects. We're obviously more than that, and that's fine. When the town is actually asking for funding, it's not just this year. This plan is something that it really should be a 5-year plan. You're not really supposed to update it. You're not committing to do all the projects on the list. It's stuff you'd like to do, and it should be ranked in how you'd like to do them, or what's important to the town. For the tier 3, for requesting the funding, you cannot request funding for a project that's not on the list. You don't have to do it in order of the list because, in theory, that would be great. You do project 1 first, project 2 first, second, 3. However, depending on the funding, maybe they're too expensive to take care of all in the Complete Streets program. There's a limited amount of funding that's available. It's up to $400,000 a year that you could ask for. You could ask for less. You can't ask for more. You can have a project that's more than that, and you can ask for funding, and then you might have matching funds or funds from a different program. But because of that, one might not be feasible this year or even next year. So you don't have to take them in order. Also, maybe you're doing sewer work and you're going to be ripping up a road, and project 7, it just makes sense to do it next year because guess what? You had to do something else on it. So you don't have to do them in order, but you can't take something that's not on the list and ask for it. So I've kind of told people before, if you think you might want it on the list, let's get it on the list. Even if it's at the bottom, that's fine, but let's try to get it on there. We want to justify why it's important to the town, but so anybody at home, feel free to add into the wiki maps. So the next steps, we're going to add additional projects if anybody has any. Because you guys know the town better than I do. I mean, I've driven around it and I've looked at a lot of maps and I've tried to research, but you guys, drive it twice a day, if not more. Prioritize the order of this. So we're going to take, some of the information that we already have, busier streets, whatever. We also want to hear from the town. So how much support is there for particular projects? Don't try to stuff the ballot box, but the more we hear about particular projects, we'll use that when we're trying to weight things. So after we prioritize the order, we're going to finalize it. We have to develop cost estimates. So that's kind of like so I have more work to do, but we want to make sure we kind of got the project list set before getting into too far into the project cost estimates, especially the order, because it's more important to get the ones at the top correct. We'll submit the plan to Mass DOT, and they're going to review it, and they'll probably have questions, and we'll respond or add a little more information if there's anything that they were a little unsure about. So then that's submitted and ultimately accepted. That's the prioritization plan. After that, Tier 2 is done, and then this year, and really any year follow-up, the town can request construction funding for any projects on the list. They can ask every year if they want. You may not get it every year, but you could certainly ask. It's only for construction, not for design. So ideally, it's stuff that doesn't require a lot of design, or maybe design's been done. And especially when you're dealing with sidewalks, sometimes that you have that. You can go to the next. So I think this is when I kind of turn it over to you guys. You guys that are from home can't really comment, but you can get onto wiki mapping, and I'm hoping I see lots of little stuff. So, oh, the other thing I was going to say, you can ask questions, but I also have basically a listing of all the 20, I forget what I have, 24 projects. I have little dots over there. So grab a dot and put it on, or grab a few dots. Put it on the projects that you think are either important to you or the most useful, the stuff that you'd like that you think we should be doing first. Feel free. There's not too many of you, so there's plenty of dots per person. So besides that, anybody else got any questions right now? Okay. Not even a softball that I can? Okay. Well, with that, like I said, I just kind of encourage you to come on up and, grab those or, check mark, do anything you want to either let us know here or, like I said, you can go on to Wikimaps and you can kind of give in more information then. Okay. Sounds good.